You know, when I first started riding steers and then on to bull riding, there was no such thing as concussion or protocol. We didn't even use the word concussion. We got our bell rung.
Cowboy culture is to be tough. If you're a cowboy, you're tough. That's the way it's always been, and that's the people that we looked up to. That's what they were, so that's what we all try to be too.
We've seen a lot of wrecks over the years doing what we do, and you know, we're not victims. We're, you know, we did it willing and able.
When you get hurt or you get banged up or bruised up, it's not like you sit out for a while and you know, wait till you feel better. That's not the way that we do things.
Our sport's come a long ways. Years ago, if it wasn't broke or you weren't bleeding, suck it up, you know, and carry on. And that's a terrible mentality, but that's what the mentality was. You know, and now we've moved forward to that where we're starting to realize there's a lot of injuries out there that people physically can't see.
There was times where, you know, you're taking Banamine and you're doing all, you know, taking whatever painkillers or drinking a beer or whatever just to get on, and you know, what you look back now, and I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but you know, like, what the hell were we thinking?
So now we've moved on to the point where it's really been brought to the forefront, and concussions are a major issue that we need to take seriously and look at.
There was a huge turning point in the sport of bull riding and in rodeo in general when we lost Ty. He had suffered many head injuries over his career and many injuries, you know, just on top of that too. And with Ty in his passing, it really opened the eyes to our, not just the rodeo and bull riding world, but to the whole world, just because of the person that Ty was. What we're trying to do now is make things better and educate our friends and people in the sport and in all sports of the effects that head injuries do have on a person and the effects that injuries have on a person.
Yeah, concussion it's one of the most common injuries, and it's one of the most complex injuries in contact collision sports. Rodeo is considered by many to be one of the most dangerous sports on the planet. The actual concussion risk, I don't think is truly known in this sport. It's not if, it's probably when, and depending on your type of rodeo event you're doing, your risk may be higher. So certainly bull riding, saddle bronc are high risk for concussive injuries. You don't necessarily need to hit your head on the ground or on the bull or the horse, so it can be that so-called subconcussive blow or whiplash mechanism where your brain sits inside a fluid-filled skull, and it's doing this with a high level of velocity and forces. So there's a lot of shearing stress to the brain, and it can in some cases slam back against the skull back and forth. So that can produce concussion-like symptoms in some individuals, which can slow reaction time and your ability to process very quickly, and also increase your risk of falling off the bull or the horse, and then certainly having a full-blown concussive event.
You know, so at the CFR that year in Saturday night's round, I sustained a concussion, and it was a severe concussion. And I showed back up there Sunday. I went through the protocol, failed everything miserably, but it's still my choice. That's the thing in this game. Nobody can tell me I can't get on. You know, it's starting to change, but for years I make my own decisions. And after some thought and that, I decided not to. Best decision I've ever made in my life. But it's hard. Left a lot of money on the table, left a couple spots in the average at the finals, you know, missed my opportunity to go to Calgary Stampede. I left a lot on the table for that decision.
So we were rodeoing down in the States, and I was at Denver, and I made a good ride the first round, and so I had the second round, and I drew an eliminator, a bull that was at the NFR, and ended up getting on him and tried my guts out, and right at the whistle got jerked down and got knocked out, and they got me out of there, and I finally eyes open up and come to, and you know, we're Canadian, and we had a flight to catch to Florida, and just jumped on the plane, and I remember being wobbly, and the plane took off, and I vomited those little baggies that I've never seen used before. I used them, and I made a lot of washroom trips, and the next day we were in Florida, and woke up and kind of was a little wheezy and was considering turning out, but I had a good bull, and we don't get paid unless we get on, and so I got on and fell off, and just a waste of time and money, and I was sick for probably a week later and just hid it from everyone. Just, you know, you're grinding it out, you're supposed to be tough.
It's so much tougher to not get on, because what you're doing is we're going against everything that's bred into us. Cowboys are tough. Cowboys are the toughest, you know, guys in the world, and this and that. It's not accepted yet. So you have to stand there and explain to everybody why you're doing it, and hopefully we're trying to set a new trend for these young kids to understand that it's acceptable if your head is not proper and you have a concussion, it's acceptable to take that time you need.
Mother Nature. Whoa, he comes down hard. Our sports medicine crew there, quickly, looking to make sure he is okay.
On June 26, 2002, I was riding bulls here and I lost my balance, and my head hit the bull's head twice, and before my accident I was knocked out of Innisfail, so my brain was injured to a certain degree, and the 2 hits I took here took it over the edge, and I was rushed to the University of Alberta Hospital. I spent 3 weeks in a drug-induced coma. Then I went to the Glenrose Hospital, and I started over again. I have learned how to walk again, talk again, and regain the use of my left arm. And I'm still making progress after 15 years.
Concussion is a very serious injury. It's one of the most complex injuries that an athlete can sustain. The brain's the source or the primary input to function, not only in a sport context, but they're going to need it forever down the road for the rest of their life. A concussive injury should be treated with the utmost respect and certainly managed with timeliness and precision. I just want you to look straight ahead. I'm just going to shine a light into your eyes.
I was in, I think, Handhills Lake Stampede. It was the first kind of run-in I had with the concussion. I was getting ready to go in the chute, and I was tying my hand in, and the guy who was supposed to be spotting me wasn't spotting me properly, and the bull kicked, and I hit heads with him in the chute and kind of knocked me loopy, and I kind of gathered myself, got on this bull quick, and it didn't. I was probably like I think I got like 2 jumped or something on that bull, but that kind of what started my whole trouble with head injuries and the concussion and things. So
back to 1. Okay. And just look side to side. It's back and forth. The brain is such an important tool. It's important for athletes to know that it makes them a good athlete. It's responsible for them staying on the bull or staying on the horse, their split-second decision-making, their judgments, their ability to process the way the bull's moving or the horse is moving and adapt and react to that situation. So if they're concussed and they have concussion-like symptoms and they're not recovered and they want to get on another bull at a next competition, or it's a very important competition to them, not only are you going to increase your risk of getting another injury with potential catastrophic consequences, it can affect their performance.
I was living my dream. I was making a living riding bulls, going to all these big bull ridings all over the place, rodeos, and then you start hearing like, well, maybe this isn't a good idea, maybe like you should think about quitting. And, like, even hearing it from my parents, like that was the last thing I wanted to hear, like, because I finally had just gotten to the point where I could like do it, and I was doing well at it, and then you put in all this work and then it's like, oh, sorry, you probably should think about not doing this anymore because you're gonna hurt yourself some more. Once I realized that kind of big picture of like, this is like only a small chapter of what my life is gonna be, I didn't want to jeopardize my long-term health to get on a few more bulls.
Good. How's that feel? Meaning you don't have any headache or anything when you go to do that or anything like that? Can you do that 10 times?
So right away, if somebody's experienced any of the signs and symptoms of a concussion, we'll get them back in the trailer, hopefully a little bit more private and quieter place, and put them through what's called a SCAT test, so a sport concussion assessment tool. It's made for testing post-concussion signs and symptoms and determining if somebody looks like they do have a concussion.
In the trenches or at a sporting competition, assessment of concussion can be difficult. It's such a diffuse injury. There are several different signs and symptoms that we look at. There could be certain clues like they can lose consciousness, they could vomit in some cases or be extremely nauseous. In a lot of cases they have headaches, they can be dizzy, they can have blurred vision, balance deficits, they can be confused or disoriented. They're not acting appropriately if you know them. There can be emotional disturbance and just their ability to think or remember things. Those are all signs or symptoms of a concussive event.
If you get a really bad headache, you tell your mom, okay?
Most times if an athlete sustains a concussion or it looks like they might have sustained a concussion, we follow and manage their symptoms, and they follow a return to play process. So it might start with a full rest for a day and then a slow bike ride and then some weight training and then non-contact activity and then higher impact activity. And usually people will go through it, not have any problems, and be able to get back to full activity within about a week. Some people definitely takes longer, and signs to watch for that it's not going the way it should is if you try and do something more. So after resting for a full day, you try a light bike ride and your headache gets worse, or those symptoms come back. That's definitely something that looks like you're still having some concussion signs and symptoms going on. The problem is when people start getting those symptoms come back, or those symptoms keep getting worse, and then we'd want to look into getting them to see somebody else and possibly a doctor and see why those symptoms aren't getting better.
I've been trying to do is treat myself like other pro athletes do in other sports, where if I get hit or if I get injured, I'm going to take the necessary amount of time till I'm ready to go again.
Here's a young gun from Calgary, Alberta. Hurwitz is staying alive.
The biggest thing I give anybody advice on sports medicine is go and utilize them, take their advice. They're there to help you. They're never there to tell you not to get on. They're there to do everything in their power to make you healthy, stronger, and be successful.
There you go, good. How'd that feel?
Not bad until I got distracted.
Okay, and were you dizzy after your ride, or?
No, not today.
Okay, good. Well, just kind of watch for any symptoms that show up. That would mean that maybe you were concussed, and so then you have to take some time off. And so if there's neck pain, because sometimes neck pain can cause a headache as well. So we just want to make sure if you are getting headache, if it actually is from the concussion or maybe it's from your neck. So we just want to make sure that that's all clear as well.
Our goal always whether you're an athletic therapist or a sports medicine physician or a chiropractor or a massage therapist working in any sport, our goal is always going to be athlete safety and making sure that the athletes can compete at an elite level to the best of their ability, but safely.
Some guys are scared to go to them because their hands sore, or maybe they have a concussion and they're afraid they're going to tell them they can't get on. They're only going to tell you that if it's for the betterment of you. So utilize them and trust them. They want us to compete worse than we want us to compete. That's their job, and I wouldn't be where I am without them.
It's not so much us dealing with concussions differently as much as competitors and athletes realizing that a hit to the head may be warranted an evaluation instead of just shuffling it off to the side.
So every stakeholder is responsible now. It's not just the athlete to report symptoms, but it's the colleagues, the teammates. It can be the medical staff that's first line in the trenches on the field covering an event. It can be their loved ones, their spouse or partners as well.
Nobody really in our sport has ever taken more than a couple days off after being totally knocked out cold, unconscious. And that's something that I want changed, and if I can start that by doing it myself, then hopefully our young guys and people that look up to me in the sport will follow that. And that's what tough is taking care of yourself and being responsible with your body and your head, because there's a lot of life after rodeo and bull riding.
When is it going to change? When, is Pozzobon the change, or is that going to kickstart some things to have a change? And these are the questions we're asking, and this is why we're doing this.
You know, to be truthfully honest with concussions in my scenario, what do I have to lose is, you know, everything I've worked for, you know, 3 daughters, a wife, and worst case scenario, you can lose your life. You know, it's no hidden secret with the Pozzobon Foundation. You know, Ty struggled with his own demons based on concussions, and it caused him to take his own life. And that's something that we want to prevent for everybody. And so what do I have to lose? You know, everything if you let it go too far.